stop taking too much time to come to the point. So
What's one thing that you wish startup should stop doing with their pitch decks?
learn from the others and listen.
Around 74% startups fail because
Lots of startups, they will catch and hang on their ideas, even if their ideas is not working.
What do you call a lazy entrepreneur?
A lazy entrepreneur.
Yeah.
My name is Henrik Peter Bærentsen. I've been in the UAE in Dubai for the last 13 years. Spent a lot of some of that time in Saudi, where I was doing accelerator programs for various ministries and organizations over there, including Israel, Highness of Business Saudis, Misfit Foundation. I've always been involved a lot with innovation, entrepreneurship, all those aspects. Now I am one of the co-founders of Fusion 42, which is a global online community for founders, framers, and funders. We will bring online together. So we have an online community in Telegram where founders can basically 24/7 talk to each other from all around the world, learn from each other. So we've got about 20 plus channels in there that's all expert-led and community-driven. Why we do this, we do it for the love of startups. These are absolutely fantastic. We want to promote startups, we want to bring them together, we want to create a supportive ecosystem for them on a global basis. So that's what we're passionate about, and that's what we do.
Welcome, Henrik. Welcome, Usama. And it's a great gathering here today. We're going to discuss about the startups, MENA ecosystem, and a lot about fundraising, pitch deck, financials. So it will be a fun. What do you think, Usama?
Yeah, it's always fun.
Super excited. So your experience is pretty useful for the new startups joining in all over MENA. So and you have been part of 150 startups, but we see like only 10% of the startups are able to scale. So what separates 90% from the 10%?
Yep. Fantastic. Great question. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Pleasure.
Exciting. So I think when you're looking at the startup landscape, there's a lot of different avenues. There's a lot of different things that play into, of course, when a startup is successful. There's a lot of things in the market. There's a lot of aspects that can be. But if we look at the team and the things that they're doing, I think one of the things you see a lot is there's a lot of people with a great vision. They've got great passions. They've got a great team. They want to do it. But I think for a lot of them is if they're not going into it with completely open eyes, knowing what they're getting into, and knowing that one thing is to have a great idea, get off the right track. But if you don't have the network, if you don't have the community, if you don't have all those things around you, it's going to be increasingly difficult. But then I also think one of the most important things that I don't think we're addressing enough is founders being operators. Again, great with a fantastic vision, but if you can't put that in and you can't implement it, you can't execute, if you can't get done, you're going to be stuck in the water. But again, there's so many things that play into it. But that, to boil it down, is one of the things that I think that we should be looking a lot more on, and we should focus a lot more on. We're teaching startups great things. There's great community. There's great ecosystem around them, making sure that they execute. Go out, talk to 100 people about your product, the things that you're doing, get their feedback, come back, continuously align to the market, pivot when you need to. We've seen many cases here in the Middle East with startups that raised and between their pre-seed and their Series A's, they might have pivoted their business model 2-3 times in it, and that because they listen to the market, they operate, they execute, they do those things at the same time, keeping it clear on what it is they want to accomplish.
Do you think like not listening to the market could be the defining factor for scalability?
I think there's a lot of defining factors that can play together as to why they don't come there. Obviously, there's also the whole element in terms of run out of money, not able to sell, misaligned with the market, not knowing what they're getting into in that. So I think there's a lot of playing that plays into to why they're not. I don't think it comes down to one specific. Each case is, of course, different. And as we said before, a lot of the market situations also play into what has actually happened. COVID, of course, being a great example that, of course, worked fantastic for a lot of startups, but for a lot of other startups, it didn't work that well in that. So a lot of factors that play into it. But if I should nail it down to what, in my opinion, might be one of the biggest things, that is executing, operating in the market.
That's the very good advice for these startups. So you say there are multiple factors, and not understanding, not listening to the market is one of the key factor
Yep.
that could undermine their scalability. But I was listening to different startup stories, those who have scaled, and they say the vision and the intent of startup matters a lot. The founder's vision for the future. So sometimes there is a lack of intent as well. So do you think, like, because intent is invisible, you
Mm.
cannot do anything with that.
Oh,
So this is a kind of thing like they have to work on themselves
yep.
and have.
Let's be honest, it's probably one of the most lonely journeys you go out on. If you take the leap, you want to go in and you want to be a founder. Let's be honest, we've all been there. It's lonely, it's hard work, it's 24/7, it's 7 days a week, and that you need to be prepared for it. That's what I mean with, you need to go into this life, this world with open eyes, with an understanding about what is this gonna take to be successful. It's not gonna come overnight. Yes, we hear all these things about a founder that wrote that 80-year-old guy that wrote something on the back of a napkin and he sells this for 10 billion US dollars or so. Those stories are not really real in that. It takes dedication, hard work, execution, network, continuously being out in the market, talking to your customers, understanding what's happening, making sure you got the right team behind you. There's so many elements that needs to play into to that journey. And as I think we've all experienced, when you go down that journey, maybe some of your friends, if you're lucky, are in that, so you've got somebody to talk to. But most likely, your family, your friends, your partners, and so on might not really know about that. So it's very, very lonely. So get into the ecosystem, talk to people. That's where I think accelerators, incubators can become very, very valuable for people. But go out, network, participate in STEP that we had the other week, all those things, engage in the ecosystem, learn from the others, and listen. And
Yeah,
then
that's
push, not to talk about Formula One, but push.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the incubator meant to be the provider for startups in various means.
Yep.
So that's a good advice. What do you say, Osama, on that?
So I believe he's spot on in everything. So you actually covered everything there. You need an incubator, you need an accelerator, you need access to the market, you need to listen to everybody. Not everybody, to your customers, actually. If you listen to everybody, you fail. You need to listen to yourself. You need to believe the intent, as you said. So
How,
you
how
need,
many times did you listen everybody?
you
Osama?
never listen to anyone except myself. And when I
That's why you're
decided,
here.
one of the most important reason about opening a startup or starting a startup is to believe, number one, to study, number two. So without studying market and entering a market and thinking, here, for example, an application for porn or something will work, will never happen. So you have to choose the market. You have to understand if it's going to be scalable or not. What's going to happen in the next stages? You have to keep studying. I studied my startup for 2 years before I started. 2 years. At least not everyone is capable of doing
Yeah.
this. But thanks God for my last exit. At least I took some
Yeah.
some time enjoying reading about the market, testing stuff, testing marketing, testing sales. It's very important. But
Yeah.
he's spot on and everywhere.
That's
Good.
I think incubator is a very important for, because it provides you everything. Like it's like a guardian or someone who's taking care of you. That's crucial for that. Henrik, your journey is pretty inspiring, and in the MENA. But how did you find culturally being here, and how's the journey?
Yeah, I think it's been absolutely fantastic. I've been like Osama. I've also been around the world. I lived in America, I lived in Asia, lived in London, obviously from Denmark or originally, and so on. But coming down here, I'll be honest, I only thought I was going to be here for year two, and then I'll go somewhere else and so on. But ended up establishing family down here. Love being in here. I love the very diverse culture. You can sit in one meeting, you're sitting in front of a American, then it's an Egyptian, then it's an Indian, then it's an Australian. I love that. It just creates much more inspiring, and you're always learning something new when you're talking to new people, learning about new cultures, new avenues, and so on. And I think if you come in with respect and you come in with an open mind and you come in with a mindset of this has to work, this is going to be fun, this is going to be interesting, I'm going to learn something new. If I fail, at least I learned something new in that. So I think, and I think that's why we're all here after so many years, because we love it here. The opportunities are
Global
endless.
citizen.
Yeah,
Exactly. So
87 nationalities or even more than that living
210 in
here.
UAE.
Oh, okay.
It's
That's
not 87.
fantastic. Yeah,
I
that's
have
fantastic.
almost 14 in my country, in my company as
Oh,
alone.
amazing.
And I'm still a
Amazing,
startup.
man. That's that can only happen in the UAE.
Yeah.
That's
Honestly,
exactly.
Yeah.
But again, that's also why
Exactly.
we're still here.
Yeah.
In that, it's such an amazing place to be. My family back home keeps asking, "Are you moving back home?" And so, after 13 years, can we just pause that conversation?
Tell us
I'm
about it.
staying here, inshallah.
Inshallah, exactly. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, fantastic. So, how do you see the startup ecosystem in the MENA growing in the next few years or maybe the next phase?
Yep.
What do you see that? What is your thinking about that?
I see a huge amount of potential. If we go back a few years, I think both here in the UAE and in Saudi, Qatar, Oman, and all the other countries down here have been a little bit on the forefront, if I would say, compared to a lot of other places around the world, in the fact that they have, from a governmental perspective, taken responsibility for the startup ecosystem, doing accelerators, incubators, trainings, hubs, all those things to really build up that ecosystem that is collaborative in nature, but is also very supportive and on all sides of the journeys of startups, which I think we're now seeing it being done all around the world, also in America and in Europe. More and more government-sponsored, government paid for accelerator, incubator, and other programs are coming up in Europe. So when I look at the Middle East, we see how many people are coming here. So much talent is coming here. So much talent is being developed here. So much talent is homegrown. So many fantastic students are coming out of university. So many fantastic founders and soon-to-be entrepreneurs are coming up. The way we talk about entrepreneurship here is second to none, I think, globally. Plus, the ecosystem is really, really collaborative in that. So government has done fantastic in putting, dare I say it, the seed money in, pardon the pun, into the ecosystem across the region here. Of course, led to a certain extent, of without cutting anybody out, by Saudi and the UAE. For the next steps in the journey, I would personally love to see two things happening. One is that the global tech providers and the private companies here, the private community steps more and more into this for various reasons. Obviously, the more mature, we're also seeing the ecosystem coming here is becoming more and more business to B2B sales and so on. We need the corporates to come in. We need them to take responsibility for some of these things. And I think there's a few simple things that we can do here to entice that. And then I think some of the things that are also being done both in Saudi and in UAE, also focusing on the later stage. We spent the last many years focusing very much on training the entrepreneurs and very early bringing that up. But also now we're seeing many more programs coming in from Dubai Chamber, from Saudi, their unicorn program and so on, supporting startups take it to the next level at the end of the day and that. And that's also where I see the private tech providers and so on need to come in and also be part of building that ecosystem up and not just, reaping the benefits of these startups going through the various stages and hopefully becoming unicorns and all those things. Very, very. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, and who could be the private stakeholder you feel they could jump in and they could be part of the journey? Who could be that?
Oh, I think basically also from an SME and all the way up. So we've got a lot of fantastic organizations here in the UAE and across the region that are already right now very supportive in that. But I think there's also a little bit of a, dare I say it, training, understanding, and leading a little bit. And that's why I would really love the international tech providers that's coming in here that have invested in hundreds, if not thousands, have acquired and are working with startups all around the world, coming in here and make it take a little bit of a step forward in inspiring the rest, showing this is how we do it. Because I can also see it from a corporate world. You're used to dealing corporate to corporate and what we're doing and so on. That engaging with these startups, how do we actually do it in this whole corporate venturing? How do we set up a structural collaboration with these startups, these guys that are running around and everything is going 100 miles an hour and they're listening and they're doing all these things. So I can also see that. So some kind of more structured engagement to how do we actually create this collaboration between the startup ecosystem, the SMEs, and the corporates and so on. But again, I think government has done fantastic jobs in saying this. I think it's also now time that corporate and of course the startup ecosystem takes responsibility to drive that forward.
That's
Comes from both sides of the equation.
That's a great one. So I want to highlight something on the ecosystem, right? So from last year to this year, the fund increased around 30% in the Middle East, which is one of the highest incremental
Yep.
in the history of startups. Now, what do you think about the untapped opportunities that nobody else entered until now in the Arab countries, for example? So, for example, hospitality. So I'm presenting hospitality tech, which is something completely new.
Yep.
But I know that there is a lot of opportunities in the market. Which one do you think it's untapped yet?
Oh, that's a great question. Wow, really putting me on the spot here. But I would actually go as far as to say hospitality tech. I see a lot of focus. We've also see what we can really draw startups and fantastic new ideas and innovation here to the region. I think hospitality is great. Let's be honest. There's so much happening in that world. There's so many opportunities here. Also think there's a lot on health tech. That's an untapped market, but not completely untapped. But I think also what we're seeing from the different various ministries of health across the region, they are very, very eager to implement new technologies, not like what we're seeing other places around the world, but it's a little bit more lacking. And here's with open arm, okay, here's our sandbox, come in, show us those things, come in, do these elements. So I think there's a lot of potential in those fields. But of course, there's still so much we can do in fintech. There's so much we can do in e-commerce. Prop tech, obviously, also fantastic in that. So I think there's a lot of different areas. But one that I'm particularly, and not because I'm necessarily a gamer, but I am extremely enthusiastic about the whole gaming,
It's growing massively now.
sphere here.
But what's your favorite yet?
My favorite yet, I will probably go in and I will say it's on health tech.
Health tech.
Yep.
Nice.
I think there's so much that can be done there that we're seeing from around the world with the open moms policy that we have here. And then, of course, it goes into something that affects all of us
No, absolutely. I exited health tech before.
Beautiful, beautiful. I didn't actually know that. So yes, I'm talking there.
It's absolutely amazing market. And it's still blue ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every day we just met somebody in 2469, one of the communities. We met somebody that he started putting a chip in your hand that can control the missing parts of your body. So if you, God forbid, anybody lost his hand or arm or leg, a small chip attached to your skin and your mind controlling the missing part. So you can actually start having normal life again. It's amazing. It's amazing.
That's amazing.
Amazing. But I think also just optimizing the whole tech, the whole health industry. We had a session yesterday, and one of our startups, and they were out of America, was talking about some of the things that they're up to in that. I think this is third or fourth within the health tech, and that is also going into the laboratory tests and so on. It was like obviously this I didn't honestly know, but sometimes you live in ignorance, in that probably better sometimes in ignorance, that there's so many mistakes being done by lab tests around the world.
Absolutely.
So going in and optimizing that, making sure that that's run more clear and so on. So there's so much that can be done not just here, but on a global basis. But I think we will be a few years, and then we'll see huge, fantastic health tech organization coming out of this region to the global market in that, because they are being supported and the opportunities are here for them in that.
No, I agree. It's very important to work for something for the human being as well.
Yep.
So health
Yeah.
tech is, I agree.
Oh,
A lot happening with the deep tech. I was just listening to different stories, and it's crazy that's happening. How the brain waves being utilized to read the mind and read, like, even they can uh, record your dreams that you're watching in during the sleep, and this is kind of crazy.
Yep.
But it's a good thing as well. Like it's really incredible.
Yep.
And
yeah, but there's so many things that we can start doing now that AI is coming in. I deliberately didn't mention AI because that's here,
The
there,
hype.
everywhere in
The
that.
hype.
Yeah, there's a bit of a hype, but it also goes into all the other ones. So for me, it's encompassed in everybody and that. And if you want to be successful as a founder, you need to have AI in everything that you do, and that you need to revisit everything that we're doing as founders and as entrepreneurs, and
yeah,
bring AI into it to a certain extent. Opens up new opportunities, but there's also a lot of challenges coming with it if you are not utilizing in the proper manner and all the way through your organization and have that roadmap. So
Yesterday, I heard something very interesting. I met a Bulgarian investor,
mm,
and she doesn't believe in AI. And she believes that all of the AI right now is fake.
really.
That was like,
Is she part
okay.
of a cult?
Let me tell you, she are somebody who exit 14 times. She has lots of money loaded, and she's currently have a very big fintech app, but she doesn't believe in AI.
huh. Interesting. I never heard
Yes.
that before. So the guys sitting on the other end of the AI tools that I'm using, they're working really, really fast. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
But interesting. But no, I think there is, of course, either you're an optimist or you're not around it. And I'm definitely an optimist in what we can do with with AI. And I think we're just scratching the surface, and we're seeing basically we could have conversation around AI every single day because new things are coming out. The new versions. What was the Sonnet that just came out with their 3.9 or 3.7 and so on? And the other one came out a few weeks ago. No, I'm kidding, but that's literally the speed of things that's coming up and so on. So I think it's an extremely interesting world we're
I agree
living in right
100%.
now. Yeah, it's gonna be cool.
Have you
Put it
seen
on
the two phones speaking to each other and then they shifted to a new language?
Yeah.
Come on. That was amazing. Even if it's fake, it's amazing.
Yeah.
The way how it's done. Did you see the video?
No, I
So
didn't. Okay, can you
they
can
put
you
a
send me?
laptop in a front of mobile, and the mobile starts speaking about something, and then the laptop discover the AI from both, right? The AI discovered that it's another AI agent. They go, oh, fantastic! Shall we move to another language that we understand each other faster? And they move to a language that you cannot understand.
That's crazy. That's
Unbelievable.
crazy, man. This is
It's
now I'm
amazing.
believing in the movies,
Yeah,
the Avatar and all that kind of movies like
yeah,
coming up.
I agree.
That's the
One day you'll see
next
it.
monster in progress.
iRobots.
Exactly.
I always believe that this will happen.
Yeah.
Every movie we have seen before is coming from somebody internal thinking, right? Think about it that whatever you think as a human, one day can be real.
The exponentiality of our development all the way back to now. It's going to be an interesting world. Let's be
Yes.
honest.
How many things we see in our life?
Yep.
Who can just even imagine that one small virus can set us all at home, sitting for 2 months?
Yep.
Thanks to UAE, we didn't sit that much at home, but at least this is really something I will never even imagine. One small virus. And a movie before that by 10 years was about this, the quarantine.
Yep.
Was exactly talking about like that is weird.
I heard.
Exactly.
I watched that, and there were so many conspiracy theories around that. We don't gonna go into that.
Yeah, we don't want to
But
talk
the thing
politics
is, we are talking about the speed at the moment, and the startups are trying to scale prematurely. This is one of the biggest issue with the startups. And a credible report states that around 74% startups fail because they try to mature themselves with excessive amount of money or put in a lot of efforts, but actually they are not ready.
No.
Your experience is really a great add-on to this, and I would like to hear you. What do you think? The premature scaling is that relatable to the MENA startup?
I would say yes and no. I haven't seen that many where I was saying that they have been premature in their scaling. That hasn't come through on the other side one way or another. But it sounds like an interesting report. I would love to dig a little bit into that. What I am seeing is, and we talked about it earlier with the pivoting and so on, that the startups are getting better and better to continuously go out, do the work, and see it. So what I would expect that some of the things that the issues with this premature scaling is around the, can I say this without offending it, the startup entitlement in that, not doing the basics, not going out, as thought about before, doing 100 interviews and continuing to do these 100 interviews with potential customers to continue figuring out, are we hitting the right mark? Are we hitting a mosquito bite, or are we hitting a shark bite? We need to have big enough problems that we can find a solution to, and we need to follow the market. And as we just talked about with AI, the market has changed a lot. Are you following in that? Are you going out and manifesting and seeing what is happening in that and doing the work? So I think some of the things might come from that, not following the market, not making sure that they're doing that. But I think it's also some of the times we've seen different hypes from investors, from startups and so on. It's like, okay, we put too much money around those things. And I'm sure that's also part of the element in that. Too much money being thrown at something that we realize not really that solution
NFT.
that needs to be. Great example. Yeah, exactly. These things, and of course, they'll impact on that part.
Yeah, and I think there are so many crazy trends coming up. So, according to you, what is the craziest trend that you think actually gonna blow up in the next 5 years that will disrupt the market, that you think we have to monitor or we have to think about?
But I definitely think it is. I don't think it's going to blow up. I think it's going to have the opposite effect. But I think it is literally startups that are not sitting at home worrying right now about AI and the tools. If you're not looking at how can we use AI to optimize or redo, pivot our
100%.
strategy, our operation, our go-to-market, our marketing, our business development, everything in that. If you are not, as a founder, sitting looking at what we can use AI for, you're sitting in a hot seat, if you could put it like that, because everybody else is doing it. And there's thousands and thousands and thousands of new AI startups coming up that will come in and attack your market. Do I believe that most of these startups will make it? No, because it's a little bit what we talked about before, the fad that's coming into to this element. But as a founder, you need to find a way to work with and utilize AI to the best of your abilities on that.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Back to the pivoting.
Yeah.
Did you pivot before?
To a certain extent, not as much as what I'm seeing in the market right now, but I was a little bit old school with my current company, a little bit more old school on the e-commerce side of things.
Nice.
In that. So not as much as I'm seeing right now in the market and the opportunities in that. But again, it's also the speed of the market and what industry you're in on those elements in terms of what you actually need to do to follow the market. So, but what about you? I'm sure you've got a great story.
I pivot all the time. I am a person who, if I see any opposite thinking on the market from my customers, I immediately rethink again everything from the beginning.
Yep.
So I believe pivot is amazing thing that you have to always consider.
Yep.
Lots of startups, they will catch and hang on their ideas, even if their ideas is not working. If you are not getting sales, it's very simple.
Yep.
It's very simple. You need to move out.
Yep.
You need to change some of the thinking. You don't need to change the whole industry.
No.
You don't need to disrupt to become a startup. You can do something simpler that can do the change. Yeah,
Exactly.
100%. But
exactly.
pivot in a bad way, it's also, have you seen any bad pivot from any startups before? Like somebody decided to change it dramatically, and then what are you talking about?
None except for the big ones, of course. None that I've literally seen that's gone really bad. But I think that's also a little bit of the issue in the market. We keep talking about success stories. We're not talking about the other ones
Exactly.
and the mistakes we've all made. Because let's be honest, we've all made them. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing, and so on. We
100%.
learn from our mistakes and that. But we should be better at also telling the other side of it. Also for new founders that's coming into the market, so they understand. Yeah, it's not just ding, ding, ding. Yes, then we raised 10 million. Yes, then we exited. And it's like, yeah, no.
And I'll raise in 2 days. Yeah. I see how you hear the stuff.
Exactly. But I think what's also exciting when we're in this, just to pivot the conversation a little bit also on that one, is that the new market that we're coming into when it comes to your MVP. Now let's start talking more about your MVE and so on. Go out, sell it, then build it, that kind of mentality, those kind of things coming in. I think it's going to be extremely exciting once that really takes a hold. And now we've got the tools are basically there to do 80-90% of it as a solo founder at home, almost in that, with all the new tools that's been coming out and so on. So I'm really excited to see when that really steps more and more into the general market.
Fantastic.
So how would you know is it the bad or good pivoting? When you are running a startup,
Still not working.
first you need to identify this is the time to pivot. First, how would you identify that? And what, in your experience, how can you identify this is a time to pivot or change the business strategy or anything in that?
That's a good
And
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Oh,
you go.
so for me, I mean, it comes down to, are we selling more? Are we selling less? To a certain extent, it comes into that. How's it been accepted in the market? What we're doing right now, whether it be new services or what it is, we're focused on new industries and so on. Are we selling more? Are we generating? But again, I think that's also the strength of most startups that are really making it through, that they are, as we talked about, continuously listening to the market, and they're ready to act fast, but they also go out and they fail fast. And they go, oh, no, that was not it. All right. Next avenue. We've all done it. We're doing it right now with some of the things that we're bringing into the market. And so go out, test it. That we're not going to spend months and months on trying to, no, let's go out, talk to a lot of people, engage with them, send it out. Does it work? Does it not work? Oh, that worked. That didn't work. Okay, scrap that or change that a little bit into to this and so on, and do X, Y, Z instead of 2P4. That was a weird combination of numbers and letters. But anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, he's right.
yeah,
Yeah. You never know the right timing to actually pivot, right? It's pivot just come by itself. You cannot have sales, or the market is not accepting you, or you are talking to the wrong market, or the product or the market change. Because, for example, 2 years ago, when I started thinking about the idea that we're creating right now, we created a project, not a startup, to see how it will work. And we got $2.6 million in revenues.
Wow.
And then we understood there is something there.
Yeah.
Now we can make the tech. So in the beginning, you can make a business model, see how it works without spending hilarious amount of money as everybody else doing in a startup on the tech side before you even test the market. And then you go to the market and do it. And in that time, you have the validity, you have the authenticity from everyone else.
Yeah.
Right?
I believe that the early stage startups have pre-seed and seed, that they are dealing with different kind of pain and different kind of problems they're coming across, and they are thinking how to enter into the market. And what do you think? Is it good? Is it easy to raise in the MENA than in US or the rest of the world?
I think it's very difficult to generalize on that. I think we've got a great ecosystem. We've got some great VCs. The market has really matured over the last many years. I think there's a lot of opportunities in that. There's also a lot of competition because, again, we've been great at really fostering and inspiring young people to go out and take the leap of faith into to that. So whether it's easier, I think that's difficult. I think it's raising money is always going to be difficult. Let's be honest. In and out. If somebody tells you differently, then I would love to meet them. In that, it takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot in that. But I think it's also for a lot of the time, if you're not doing it in the proper manner and trying to raise to the race point, no, trying to run to the race point. So you're basically running before you can walk. Then it's going to be even harder for you. You need to do your basics before you can go there. Do you have your startup playbook? Do you have your go-to-market strategy? Have you proven yourself in the market? Do you have all your things listed up? What is it that the investors are really looking for? Have you been out and networked with them? Are you in that state of mind? Then of course it's going to be easier, but it's never going to be easy. It's going to be easier, but it's never going to be easy.
Henrik, what is your experience? What is the average time for the raise, for the pre-seed and seed in the MENA? What do you think?
Oh, I don't know. Months, 6 months, 9 months from. But then it's also a question on when do you actually say that you start? As I think a lot of most people do, they start their race, they start going out to more and more networking and doing all those things before they're actually ready to do it. But it also depends on what round are you on in your first, or where are you in that process. But I don't actually know the numbers. But it's an interesting question. I'm sure we can find that somewhere, but that would actually be an interesting statistics to get. But I would say at least 6 months to 9 months is realistic timeline. You've done it multiple times, so
I have raised hundreds of millions, and it never get easier. So that is the point. It doesn't get easier. And the first million is always the most difficult million to get, right? Because you need to prove a lot of things, and you're still not on the shape that you are expecting to have, right? So it takes 6 months as minimum if your product is incredible and you have a product market fit, and 2 years in the worst case scenario. But if you reach to 2 years, then you should close the startup or pivot.
Yep.
So this is a really big tricky question.
Yeah.
I have never raised the same way, never
Yeah.
raised in the same time.
Oh.
It's that easy that when you start having somebody to believe in you, this is the moment everybody believe in you. They just need one
Who could
to
be
step
that
in.
someone, Usama?
One VC
Your
would be
wife.
great one.
Your kids.
one lead.
You know
Yeah,
that
the
the
first
wife
one.
is the most important reason for failures. If your wife doesn't believe in what you do, you will never
your
survive.
wife, we're gonna be listening this.
Never. Yes, she always listens. Mate, I share everything with my wife. She knows, and she has to tell me, let's do it. If the government doesn't tell you, let's do it, that's a big issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. So, Henrik,
Yep.
you would have listened so many pitch decks in your entire career.
Yep.
I think thousands. So,
Not that many, but a lot.
what is the most unusual pitch that you ever heard?
No, none really springs to mind as something that really stood out, because I think most founders have also learned that there is a bit of a process and there's certain things you need to cover and so on going through it.
Storytelling.
But I would say the ones that impressed me the most is the one that doesn't matter if they've have learned it by heart. I appreciate when people learn it by heart. We run something called Pitch Kung Fu, where founders have 2 minutes to pitch their idea. No notes, no nothing, just them and the audience and the camera to do it in that. But the ones that very quickly grabs my attention with a clear problem, how we're going to solve this and why we are special compared to the rest of them. And that it might be if they're pitching and they say, well, we've actually almost oversubscribed our round right now. That's something that I would like to hear earlier. Oh yeah, our head AI specialist is a professor at Howard, and so okay, that's something I want to hear. And that then you've got my attention in that. It's about bringing those things into the front of the pitch and really making it understand, because let's be honest, when we go to pitch competition, when we go to all these pitch sessions and so on, there's a lot of elements in there, but you grab them early and then you have them through the rest of it, because then I know, okay, that's why I need to listen to the rest of it. I might not know, or somebody that pitched to me an AI tax platform the other day. Not really the most sexy thing in the world, let's be honest, but he caught my attention from the beginning. So I listened all the way through it. I didn't tune out. I start thinking about what am I having for dinner or whatever you talk about and think about when you're sitting in that situation. So that's it. But no, I don't really have any specific that really stood out in my mind. I would say where I have caught angel checks in all fairness, and don't ever quote me on this, has been more with here than with here.
Absolutely.
And then the person that's sitting or standing in front of you, yeah, that's what you're literally buying into. And then there's something about an idea, some execution that they want to do.
Yeah.
If that person is passionate, they know what they're talking about, they've done their homework,
They're
and they come with it.
obsessed.
Exactly. Then I'm in. And that's usually where I've got my checks.
Interesting. What will you advise to startups, or what's one thing that you wish startup should stop doing with their pitch decks?
Stop taking too much time to come to the point. So a little bit what I said before. I want to understand from the beginning. If you don't grab my attention, just like anything else in life, if you don't grab my attention in the beginning, and there's so much where I think when you go through them and then you tell them afterward, but that you need to have that on front, because that's what's good. There's like, they sometimes feel like there's certain founders that are saving their gunpowder towards later because they want to continue to impress you throughout the pitch. That's great. You can come back to it. You can have the logo up there. But if, for example, you are in hospitality technology, and on slide number 15, I see that your major investor and the chairman of the company used to be the chairman of a Core or Hilton or something like that. It's like, yeah, I want to see that and hear that from the beginning in that, because that's really, okay, that brings value. And that's just an example. I haven't actually seen that deck, but I would love to see a deck like that.
Yeah, I agree. Because most of the investors I've spoken to, they said it's the first 3 slides.
Yep.
So that's why I put the team. It's now slide number 2.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%.
What is on the first and the second?
The first is what we do.
Okay.
So I don't put any more covers. I put a sentence that makes it clear to everybody when they look, because this is the most slide that stay in the screen. So when you are pitching, everybody is waiting his turn. The slide will be in the screen. So if you don't explain it very well, that's a problem.
Solid point. Yeah.
Yep.
And what is the weight of the team when startup is pitching at early stage, or the seed or
Huge.
pre-seed?
Huge. For me, it's one of the biggest thing that's in there. There's so many aspects, of course, to it. So it's different which one is the most important thing. But team for me is always going to be in the top 1, top 2, top 3 on things. It's the people that's going to execute. And if you believe in that team, just like we've all heard the stories where, yeah, they put 150 in, okay, that one failed, but the next one, they knew at one point that team is going to make it all the way in that. So definitely in my top 1, 2, or top 3.
Oh, that's great. And how about the traction? Where should that be?
Amazing. But I would always expect that the startup that's going out and racing, that they have traction. I mean, of course, there are your special circumstances and so on, but I would always expect them to have significant traction and be on the cusp or already going through the hockey stick to bring back the good old terms. But when you're as old as I am, you're never going to learn new terms for these things. But somebody that's, for you, side on the cusp or in the middle of the hockey stick, really want to see that.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
Because sorry.
Yeah.
Go.
Please go ahead.
No, because I think at the end of the day, what you also want to do as a startup, when you're going out pitching and when you're doing all those things, is to put yourself in a position. The other one, you want to make it an easy. Fundraising is, that better than anybody, just as much about sales and so on, and that you want to make the decision, and then make people buy from emotion, and then they buy rationale, then they justify their buying or investment decisions and that. So if you get them in on that level from the beginning, it's going to be a lot easier for you and that. So understand why wouldn't they probably understand why do they want to invest, stress those things, and that could be, as you were talking a little bit about the formal. All right, we've already got these lead investors in. So do you really want to miss out in that? Or other aspect, we just signed a huge agreement with the government and so on. We need this money to do X, Y, Z. All right, that's interesting. All those things, it's going to make an easier decision at the end of the day. And that's what you want to do. You want to tee it up. So
you came exactly to the question that I wanted to ask you. So that's very interesting. Traction. Is it sales only?
Ooh, that's a great one in that. think generally, yes, but you've also got a lot of specific areas where it's also about what is their pipeline looking like and how do they get that pipeline. So they come and said, we've been doing XYZ online webinars, and we've got all this line of what we're doing on our product. We've been doing all these things and so on. Then a very, very strong pipeline, but where they can show also the convergence as part of that, that can also be
Nice.
in that. But of course, depending on what kind of startups that you're going for, traction can mean a lot of different things in that. Also, yes, we've got now 15 AI specialists, professors, doctors in AI are coming on board or working with them or advisory board. There can be a lot of different elements in that, but
Nice.
primarily on the other side. I know I'm
Sales, yeah.
Well said.
misutilizing the word traction a little bit, but you get what I mean.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah. So traction is the key. And coming towards incubators, a lot of startups are graduating from the incubators. You spent a lot of time with Plug and Play and so many others. So what do you think? Why do many incubators struggle to produce startups without significant traction or the basic market validation? Why is that? We emphasize incubator is very important. It provides resources. It acts like a guardian. But when you are coming out without the basic market validation, whose fault is this?
That's a great question. So let me try to bite that up a little bit. Let me come back to the part of whose responsibility it is afterward, because it comes back to what we talked about with entitlement, accountability, and these things before. When it comes to accelerators and incubator, I think we've gone through several loops of what it is and how it is. It's not the same thing as it was in early 2000s and when YC started up, and we've all seen the things with YC, and I think still great. Is it overhyped? Maybe. Have they produced great results? It's a great thing for the startups to have on the paper and do a great education. Yes. Are the cohorts too big? That's what people in the programs are saying. And in that, we're looking at this region. And what I was so passionate about when I joined Plug and Play in Saudi was to do the program for the MISC organization. So His Royal Highness the Crown Prince of Saudi's private foundation over there. Because what we figured out we wanted to do together was a different kind of accelerator program that's much more impact and empowerment focus. So it's not just about, pardon my French, coming in. Here's a few classes. We're not really sure what class we're going to have next week. We'll figure it out. Here's a phone book. Here are these, and I'm generalizing, of course. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody, but really setting up a program where you bring in the right speakers, the right network from investors to different organizations, ministries, and so on. Bring them in, talk about the things, let the startups do what they need to do, let them run the magic in and that, but really focusing on what is the outcome at the end of the day. What do we need to do in that? So up until now, I think a lot of it has been very horizontal, different themes, different week. I kind of think that that's it. That was also the program I did with Plug and Play. That also became best practice at Plug and Play very, very quickly. And some of the things, even though Plug and Play has amazing other programs, but this one was a little bit different for a lot of different variations. But when we're looking at it now, and that's what we're also working on in Fusion 42, is also how do you look at it from a more vertical perspective when you're doing accelerator programs? So what we are about to launch is a more vertically focused accelerator, because we want to get into the accountability from the startups and not the entitlement and not knowing what they're getting into, but get your ducks in a row, get everything sorted, take those steps, take them through instead of boom, boom, boom. No, here is the entire element of it. So when you finish, they're going to have a startup playbook. They're going to have a go-to-market strategy. They're going to have a fundraising plan, and they're going to have an AI roadmap. That what we're going to go through with different classes every week, workshops and so on, so that they have tangibles. They can basically come into a workshop and somebody will sit and they will say, okay, this is how we do a forecast. Boom. All right. Here's a legal health check. These are the things you need. This is how you do with your IP. Boom. All right. When it comes to go-to-market strategy, you need X, Y, Z. Let's build them together so that they know every week there's an outcome. So you get all the, sometimes I think the boring stuff out of the way, but it's important to do, because you're never going to get to sit with an investor cutting you a check unless you've done those things. And I think that's where a lot of incubators and accelerators might be doing the startups a bare favor. Does that translate? I think
Yeah.
that's a very Denglish saying, but perfectly translates
Yeah.
into that. You're doing a bit of a bare favor in terms of making it too easy, not putting up demands to them. All right, this now Monday. On Friday, you come back, and we want to see you having talked to 100 potential customers in the market. Come back, show us that. All right, on to the next one. All right, now we need to create this. Now we need to create this. All right, do you have your forecast? Do you have your incorporation? Do you have X, Y, Z? All the way going down, of course, from the end of the play. What do you need to go to market your products, all the things, but also from a more economic, from a more business-minded perspective? How do you bring it in for what is that investors are asking for? If we know exactly what the investors are, we can map out, we can reverse engineer, and that's what we've done. What do you need to do to get to that point? So holding the startups accountable. And if we're being too loose on them, because it's fun. I've done, as I said, quite a lot of accelerators and also incubators, and it's the most fun in the world. And I love being around founders because they are passionate and they are energetic and they see opportunities more than they see challenges compared to majority of the population, if I can say that out loud. And I love being in that energetic, passionate environment and that. But we also need to hold them accountable, and they need to hold them self-accountable to setting that in. And then one of the things that I see also when you're looking at these kind of programs is making sure that it's from a holistic point of view, the startups that you get in there, because often what it turns out to be is that the best teachers are usually their cohort colleagues, because they're going through the same problems, or they've had it, or they've seen this. One of the cohorts that I did, I think we had around 20 startups in it, and we have about 7 or 8 what do you call it, collaboration deals being done between this group of startups. So accountability from both sides of the equation. You
So
need to do it. You need to show up to get it done. Yes, sorry,
nice.
that was a long
So
spiel.
where do you work now? So we can tell the followers to follow.
Yeah, I work at Fusion 42. It's a online community started by myself and my colleague Derek. That's a former hedge fund manager out of Europe. He ran a hedge fund on the other side of $500,000 US dollars, $500 million US dollars. And then our third co-founder is sitting in Las Vegas. Derek and I are here, and he is a former ecosystem builder and a former VC. And so we've built an online community. There's basically, we call it 24/7 startup support with different channels on Telegram where people can go in, they can get expert. All of the channels are led by experts and ask each other. So if somebody's sitting at 2:00 at night, they can go in on that. Then we run various programs. We run various calls every week. We have pitch kung fu, pitching sessions, and all those things, basically for the love of startups, to support them in and that. So we are now, I think we've been 4, 5, 6 months maximum. We've been at it. So it's very early days.
It's a great community. You invited me to one of the event, and I was there. You invited me to so many, but I was there.
Why you
and
didn't invite me?
Yeah, I don't know. Really. That's a good note to
Yeah, I would
finish
love
it
to.
on.
I would love to join, please.
Definitely. I've already got a few ideas on how we can get you in front of these guys, because it's about
Amazing.
giving the startups the tools and the thoughts and bringing them together, and having somebody with your caliber in front of some of these guys would be fantastic. Our ecosystem is global, so
Wow.
would love to get you involved on that, both of you, of course, on that. But we've talked about that before. So
You don't need him.
oh.
So yeah, and I think particularly I will go to the previous point where you mentioned about the incubators and what you are doing with Fusion 42. So how, if anybody wants to join you, how they can join?
So first step is to go in on Telegram. I guess we can share the link somewhere. There they come into one of the first engines. We have a few more coming out, and we've done quite a lot. But the first engine that we built is basically an engine, and that's the front
But
but exactly, that we've built. That's the public one, and behind that is then our whole community with all these different channels and so on coming in. But there, we're basically scraping the internet. I think we're catching on the other side of 95% of all new funds that are announced in the world, so that the startups know. Okay, here, I think last week we had 600 million worth of new funds, 13 new, and the other week we had 3 billion. Of course, it goes up and down, but I think we're probably some of the only ones that are actually scraping and getting all this information in that's readily available. So startups, because the worst thing you can do as a startup is going out and pitching to somebody that hasn't caught a check in 3 years and so on. No, but here, these have just been announced literally today. All right, they have money to spend.
And
exactly,
resources,
they've got funds in that.
Nice.
We're developing quite a few others on that kind of realm, but that would be the first step. I would say go into that. Then we have on Luma, we have our whole event series with all our calls and all the things that's happening online.
Right, and they can access curated list of VCs and investors, those who have funds in the pipeline, and they are looking.
So all that is literally on the Telegram channel. They're all
Amazing,
there historically from the last 2-3 months. We were beta testing it for a while, but it's all in there. And what we're then curating on the other side for our members is then the list where they can go in and they basically have access to all the details as well.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's a great work. I have seen Derek posting a lot about the new funds and on the LinkedIn, and I was wondering, where did he find a lot of people and the VCs? But it's a great work. And what is your impression about Morse Bridge? You attended 2 demo days, I guess. How was that? What is your impression about that?
Really, really like it. I think it's a great ecosystem. I think the startups that came in and pitched, I like that there's a little bit of versatility in who they are, where they're from, what it is that they're working on, but also on the stage of where they're at right now. So I really, really think that you guys have done a fantastic job in bringing this together, curating this, and creating that ecosystem and that focus on the startups. So very, very impressive. So thank you so much.
I'm really happy after this. It's fantastic. Great. You want to ask anything, Usama, or you?
I will not stick to the questions, but because I love what he's saying.
This is a fun time now. We ask so many serious questions.
Yeah. So many serious questions. Exactly.
And not about what was your favorite.
Let me ask you a very fun question.
Yes.
What was the fastest check you paid in your life?
Oh. Well, the fastest one I ever did, I don't think to this day, just don't tell them. I'm not sure I really understood what they were doing. But again, I loved the team, and I was trying to go through and become very, very technical. And I was like, okay, but I can see the point on a high level. I can see this, and I love what they're doing. And I'm like, one way I want to be involved with this and see how it is. And I didn't think that took me more than 2 weeks in that 2 weeks to cut that check.
Oh, wow.
For my own investment and in that. So yeah, really.
I hear 2 interesting parts there. One is about the technical. So you believed in somebody who doesn't speak well, but he's technically well. And that's very, very, very difficult to find an investor doing this. Because they always want to see the guy in a show. You got my point. And a lot of founders, I met geniuses, and what they are building is incredible, but they don't know how to speak.
No.
They're not commercial.
No.
So that is an amazing point. So
yeah, fantastic.
Exactly. Well, I think that's also what we need to learn, and that's why the team, again, as you talked about earlier, comes into to play. But maybe now that we are talking about investors, we get in with a funny joke that one of our speakers in Saudi at one point actually said, and I was like, "What do you call a lazy entrepreneur?"
A lazy entrepreneur.
Yeah. A venture capitalist.
Absolutely. Yeah. Amazing. Great one to close with. That's
that's
I think
a good note.
we shouldn't say anything else.
Yeah.
Cheers,
thank
guys.
You so much,
thank you very
Henrik.
much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks so much.